guys, Veggie Gamer back, and we're back to Necrit stuff, guys. Thank you so much for the support of my, still here, Lord of the Rings, every single time. League of Legends reaction, guys. Loved that so much. You guys were awesome in the comments, guys. I always say in my reaction, I don't know this stuff, guys, so I need you to fill me in. You guys fill me in so much, but many of you did say, hey, Veggie, just go and check out Necrit's video. He's the master in this stuff. We've covered one of his videos before, guys. It was the world of the League of Legends MMO is complete or something like that, which we covered in a reaction. So go and check that out if you wish. Which was a lot of information. That was a lot of information. But this is specifically about the Still Here trailer. Now, apparently Necrit's videos covering these trailers are quite easy for, you know, people that are new to the lore and everything, and so I am really looking forward to this, guys. The characters in it were absolutely brilliant, guys. We have, okay, I've already forgotten the name of the demon guide. Aatrox, that's not right, is it? Morgana, freaking love her. My goodness, she was awesome. Kayle, and I've just remembered I was going to get some blooming Kayle and eat a bit every single time he said the word Kayle, but I forgot. So that's that idea out of the window. Yasuo, who apparently a lot of people didn't recognise, guys. And admittedly, I wasn't sure if it was him. I was like saying, oh, that looks a bit like an old Yasuo. So now everyone's referring to him as old man Yasuo. Why they're not referring to him as Yasuo old, I'm not sure. You know, each to their own. Ashe, who was... she did so little, guys, but I thought she was awesome. She had a presence in that trailer. I wonder if she's one of the original characters, because my you know, prediction when it comes to League of Legends is like your archer, your wizard, and it started off very basic. Not calling it Ashe basic, especially considering who her husband is apparently. And so I wonder if Ashe is one of the original characters. Little prediction out there? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Maybe Necrit will mention it here. By the way, I'm so sorry about how badly I pronounced his name in the last video that I did of his, guys. And Ashe's husband, I don't know. I'm dyslexic, guys. All of you told me what his name is, but my goodness, that was hard for me to process. And so, hopefully, thank you, though, so much for your comments. They were absolutely wonderful. I do want to keep this intro a little bit shorter. And, of course, the main star of the trailer, which I didn't even pick up on, guys, Kindred. Now, I was so sure that old Sean Bean, as I call him, sorry, Necrit, I'm not calling you Sean Bean, was being attacked by two characters. But apparently that is Kindred, the character. Is Kindred playable? Because apparently they are essentially the personification of death in League of Legends. And I called her fuzzy britches in my reaction, guys. I'm asking for blooming trouble. So I mean, out of all the characters that I've met, I've met like massive dragon things flying through the air and everything in one of the Tales of Runeterra videos, which was beautiful. Is Kindred's got to be the most powerful character in League, right? I don't know. And obviously the big fuzzy dude at the start of the call, I loved him. Either way, guys, let's get into this. Necrit's videos are an absolute pleasure. Cannot wait to check this out. The lore of Still Here cinematic explained. And by the way, guys, I'm sorry that I am a couple of days late onto this. I wanted to get this out a couple of days ago, but I just couldn't, unfortunately. It's been a very busy weekend for me. Necrit, do your stuff. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
If you watched the new Still Here cinematic and you thought to yourself, that was cool, I still have no idea what happened, you would not be alone. And that's most likely because you don't know the ins and outs of League's lore. Which I can assure you is totally normal.
Insane.
Most people are too lazy to read. And it just so happens to be that not only is Still Here our first League cinematic that is fully canon from the get-go, also the cinematic is an absolute love letter to League's lore community. Because it is not only full of interesting details, but it is also overflowing with lore references. So no matter if you wonder why Kayle and Morgana look different, why Yasuo is old now, or if you don't even play League and you just saw a cool cinematic and you want to learn about it, this video should help with that.
Thank you, Necrit.
Let's explain what exactly happened in League's newest cinematic, still here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the call was insane,
Right at the
guys.
beginning,
That was
you
very
can
hard to
hear a
comprehend.
quote. Tomorrow is a hope, never a promise. Which came from Kindred, who are the twin deathly spirits, also known as the lamb and the wolf, who very
There we
simply
go.
put, in League's universe, represent death. They are sort of like the Grim Reaper. After which the cinematic starts
They.
with a cut into the Freljord, where, after a fierce battle shown by the number of soldiers scattered around, the barbarian king Tryndamere was finally brought to his
Tryndamere.
knees. His enemies are most likely the Wintersclaw tribe, because as you'll see, this entire scene happens in the present times. In the second shot you can see that his very iconic helmet had fallen off. You can actually see it here in the cinematic. After which, Tryndamere looks up at the brink of his strength, and he sees the faint silhouette of a figure with a bow. Of
I did notice the helmet.
This is referencing the lamb, indicating that death had come for him. Though, as you'll see
Funny
later,
looking
there is
character.
more than one twist to this. In the next scene, we actually travel to the past.
Yes.
Specifically, here
You guys
we
told
can
me
see
this.
ancient Demacia. This was after Demacia was founded as a safe haven from magic, but before the nation became a haven for racists against magic.
Oh,
Since
really?
most of the really bad
I didn't know this
hatred was
existed.
fueled by the conflict between Kayle and Morgana, which would happen later. This also means that at this point, Demacia has not progressed that far with the research of Petricite, which is the pale stone that can absorb
Yeah.
magic. And as a result,
what
if you
it's
look
made
at
of,
the
isn't it?
buildings here, you can see they do not resemble the white buildings just yet. Another thing to point out here is the sea of dead soldiers. At first sight, you might think that all of these are ancient Demacians who just got slaughtered by the Darkin demigod Aatrox. But that's
Aatrox.
not entirely the truth. Now, for the sake of simplicity, I am not going to explain what the Darkin are. Just know that they are corrupted, power-hungry demigods.
I'm guessing
But
they're
we
not
have
nice
to mention
guys.
something for an important detail that happens later. The Darkin are demigods
Darkin.
wielding blood magic who got banished
Oh my
inside
goodness.
their weapons.
So cool.
And in Aatrox's case, he was bound inside his greatsword. The
Someone
body
did
you
mention
can
it was like
see
Soul
here is
Calibur.
actually the body
Soul
of a
Edge.
mortal who picked up the weapon, after which Aatrox transformed them and dominated their mind. You will see that
Siegfried.
this will get cool in
Nightmare.
just a moment. Anyway, next, as the scene cuts to Kayle and Morgana. For only half a second, you can see that Morgana dropped a soldier. She almost disrespectfully threw him to the ground, which indicates that the soldier was not an ancient Demacian, but rather it was an enemy. So Aatrox
Presumably.
didn't do all of this alone, which would make sense because the Darkin, such as Aatrox, used to build their own warbands of mortals by either enslaving them
Oh,
or by
yes.
turning them into worshippers who believed they were gods. This was especially common during the Great Darkin Wars, though this entire scene is happening after that. So these
Darkin
barbaric
Wars.
marauders were just Aatrox's followers who attacked Demacia. After this, the scene shows us the early version of the Demacian armor. You can see they are yet to reach their glorious design with petricite steel. You can also see some hints of that in the armor scattered around the battlefield. And that's just as Kayle and Morgana look up towards the sky where Aatrox is waiting. Now of course,
Oh, yes.
many of you may know that in-game, Kayle has two swords.
Oh
and
my
Morgana
goodness.
is the mage
Oh
who
my
rules
yes.
you for the entire game. So how come Kayle has one sword
Wow, Kayle
and
looks
Morgana
different,
has
huh?
the other one? Well, before Kayle and Morgana became the twin aspects of justice, it was their mother, Mira, who held that
Hell
title,
yes.
and who served
Mira's
justice
awesome.
around the world while wielding a celestial blade. Later in her life, she decided to pass her powers onto her two twin daughters, and so
Wow.
she split her blade and she gave one half to each of them. It wasn't until the conflict a bit later that Morgana essentially quit her job as an aspect and she gave her blade to Kayle. So at the time of this cinematic, the two still serve as the twin aspects, each wielding one half of a celestial blade. Another cool detail here
Right.
is that as the two leap into the sky after Aatrox, you can see how Kayle leads the charge with righteousness, with Morgana being the one who simply follows her. That's because Kayle always looked up to their mother and what they fought for, while Morgana was always wary of their newfound powers.
Wow.
That's why in this entire cinematic, Morgana looks a bit more cautious. And before Morgana flies off into the distance too, for the last time, we have some time to see just how tribal Demacia looked at one point. Though even during this time, you can see that some of the buildings already started shaping up.
Oh,
After which,
cool.
of course, the battle of Aatrox and the twin aspects starts. Unfortunately, there is not much to mention here. It is just a cool fight.
It's a cool fight scene. So you need.
Eventually, Aatrox smacks both of them to the ground. Their side of the fight starts looking
There's
grim.
a look that Kayle gives
Aatrox
Morgana, which
quickly
you guys
follows
pointed
them
out.
down. After his epic entry, you can actually see more of his followers charging forward
I
in
didn't
the
notice that
background.
at first, yeah.
After which, we get another cool reference. As Morgana stands up, she takes her sword and stabs it to the ground, leaving it behind as she focuses on her magic. This is foreshadowing for how later on Morgana gives up on the legacy of their mother.
Morgana's
Now,
cool.
of course, this wouldn't get a full approval from Kayle, who always idealized their mother. And so, when she looks up with a frown, you can see the cinematic gives us a scene where Morgana is getting rid of her armor, all while being framed by the sword which she left behind. And then,
Wow.
of course, we get to see Morgana wield her dark magic. Now,
yeah.
I say dark, but in reality, it is celestial in origin. Morgana is not evil or anything like that. In fact,
Okay,
she is
good to
far
know.
better at protecting the people of Demacia than Kayle. But that's a whole another story. And so she uses her celestial chains to bind Aatrox to the ground, an obvious reference to her Q ability in the game, which is followed by Kayle picking up Morgana's sword.
There it is, that look.
Again, this is not only a reference to what Kayle looks
Oh,
like
she picked up her
in-game,
sword. I
but
didn't
it
pick
is
that up.
also a reference to
Well,
the
she did.
fact that later down in her story, she does actually claim Morgana's sword.
Right.
And by doing that, she fully embraces their mother's legacy. This is also why, when Kayle walks by Morgana, she once again proves that she's the jerk and Morgana is the good one. When she gives her that disapproving look. It is
It's
not
a
only
filthy look.
directed at the fact that Morgana is using magic in Demacia.
It's
During
disgust.
those times, it was not ideal, but they were kinda forced into it. More than that, Kayle is simply disappointed by the fact that Morgana would dare to leave their mother's sword behind. Especially if she's doing that to only focus on her magic. That's the real point of this scene.
Yeah, it looks like
After
disgust
which,
to me.
even though Morgana carried the crap out of this fight, using both blades, Kayle uses her passive ability from the game, she calls upon the righteous flames, and she burns Aatrox. The funny part here is that after this fight is over, Kayle has to kinda awkwardly walk back to Morgana and give her the blade back. Because
I'd say
again,
thank you
this
as well.
scene is not how Kayle claimed Morgana's sword. That happens later. Anyway,
Okay.
this is where the final awesome detail of the story happens. First of all, when the righteous flame burns Aatrox, for
Oh, yes.
only a
You
single
guys mentioned
second,
this.
you can
I can't see
that Aatrox dropped his sword. Since
Oh.
he is a Darkin, this indicates that his soul went back to the blade. But what's
Which some
interesting
people weren't
is
happy
that
with.
in this scene, it
We'll
might be
mention
the
it
first
afterwards.
time Aatrox got ever sealed. The vast majority of the Darkin got sealed at the end of the Darkin War, where a celestial aspect came down and helped mortals seal everyone. But some of the Darkin successfully fled away, and it was mentioned that Aatrox was one of them. And since this is happening sometime after the Darkin Wars were already over, it is possible that this is the moment Aatrox got caught. Because we know that he had to get sealed eventually. Because later he gets picked up by another soldier and he gets his entire story with Tryndamere and Pantheon. So this might be
Really?
a lot
Pantheon
more
and
of a
Tryndamere?
historical
Okay.
moment than most people might imagine.
I know Pantheon,
Anyway,
guys.
even
Fascinating.
cooler than this are the last
All the
few
beards.
frames from this scene.
Yeah,
Once again,
this is what I'm talking
you can
about.
see a mysterious figure standing on one leg holding a bow, which is
Kind of.
the iconic pose of the lamb.
Oh!
representing death.
Okay, now I
This
see
one
it.
has some
Good.
absolutely awesome implications. You see, the reason
guys did
why
mention that
Aatrox
she was
is
there, or
extra
they were there.
evil and he is driven by slaughter is because he just wants to die. He hates his corrupted form. He hates the blood magic binding him.
You guys
but it
mentioned
just
this as
so
well.
happens to be that the Darkin are immortal. He is simply never going to escape this prison. His end
cage.
always waits for him inside his weapon. Which is why Aatrox simply wants to destroy the entire world. In his mind, that would be the only way to end this suffering.
Wow.
He can't be imprisoned if there is no prison. And because he's immortal, you can see the lamp in the fire. But she's simply watching him, not doing anything. Because death can't claim Aatrox. And then the cinematic cuts to perhaps the most badass part. This is where all the major talks happened. So let's break it down. Of course, this scene takes us to Ionia. However, this is Ionia about 30 to 40 years in the future from the present days. Take it for what it is for now. We'll explain this time skip later.
Is the villain guy
Here you
anyone?
can see some bandits burning a village.
We'll find out.
They are wearing masks, which of course are very popular in Ionia because they are connected to legends and demons.
That's adorable.
At first, this made me think that these might be related to the Shadow Order. But as you'll see later, there is no shadow magic to be seen here. So these are far more likely to be related to Navori, which is a group of a little bit too patriotic Ionians, who are not afraid of attacking other Ionians if they don't share their views. That's also why you can see that they are attacking other Ionians here. And after this, a mysterious man with a staff draws a line in the dirt. This is a hypothetical line as well as a literal one. It simply tells them to not go any further. I love how this cinematic can tell us all of this without saying a word. A very common theme in this entire cinematic. Anyway, the two bandits laugh at the drawn line. We get a bit of a western standoff, after which, in an extremely subtle way, the cinematic reveals who this man is. Up to this point, when I first watched this, I wasn't sure if this was Elder Suma or Master Doran.
Yeah,
but in fact,
I have heard, I saw
with
these
a very
names.
slight tilt of his head, the scene reveals the scar on his face, which always belonged to Yasuo. And this is where things get absolutely wild. When the bandits attack, you can see that Yasuo is not using his sword. In fact, his sword is nowhere to be seen around him. But what's more interesting, he is not even using the wind technique. And that's because Yasuo has a very clear purpose in how he's fighting them here. If you look closely, you can see that he's not killing anyone. And the reason for this is very simple. Yasuo has been murdering people with wind his entire life. And if you really look into his story, you might notice that the wind never brought anything good into his life. In fact, using the wind technique, other people suspect that he murdered his master. So the wind is the reason why he got exiled from his home. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched to believe that Yasuo was simply done with using the wind, especially if it was taking lives. And you'll see that all of this is heavily reinforced in this entire scene. Of course, during this fight, without the wind or his blade, you can see the bandits actually manage to knock Yasuo down, while he faces the option to use the blade. Here people should notice that this is not Yasuo's blade. It is the blade of one of the bandits, which Yasuo knocked out of their hand earlier on. Now,
I did not notice that. That's amazing.
You can see the shock in his face.
So he had just given up his blade completely.
That without his wind technique, he can't protect this village. After which, the cinematic reveals some more bandits, with their boss in the middle. Although, unfortunately, this is entirely new character, so there is nothing to mention.
I was gonna say!
We got the beautiful scene where Yasuo faces his destiny.
Picks up the blade.
First of all, he still has the bottle on him, so he is still an alcoholic, even at his respectable age. But also, he drops his staff, which indicates that he's done pretending to be someone he's not. After which, the leader signals the archers. Until the very last moment, you can see that Yasuo does not want to do it. But eventually, he picks up the blade to defend himself. And not only is he defending himself by physically using the blade, but also by using it to channel the wind and making the iconic wind wall. Here,
which we've seen in Wild Rift.
Use the wind wall on purpose. It is not just a cool reference to his ability in the game. This one has a wild payoff. We'll get to that one in a moment. Next, as Yasuo runs forward, he finally fully channels the wind. But again, notice that he is not killing anyone with it. He
I was
seemingly
wondering if
only
he wasn't. There's
glances
one
past
guy
their
kind of looks like he
enemies as
does.
they drop down without a single drop of blood. At the beginning, it is not clear what is exactly happening, but then there
The
is
next
one
guy.
that shows us what he's
Here.
doing. Yasuo is using the wind to only knock the bandits down. He is not drawing blood, and he is not killing them. This
I
is
wasn't
such
sure
a
about
cool
that
way
guy.
to show us that even though Yasuo is once again forced to embrace the wind, he is not willing to use it to murder anyone. He is simply done with killing. Another cool detail
Even
here
the boss
is that
guy.
as Yasuo unleashes the wind, the binding on his arm actually rips, which is a reference to the fact that he's being unleashed again.
Right.
After which, we
I was
get
wondering if
to
that's
the
part of his usual
beautiful
gear.
payoff. After a bit of chasing, at the end, Yasuo is faced with a cloud of arrows coming from
This
him.
went completely
This
over my
would be
head
a
when
sure
watching
kill
it
to
live, guys.
Yasuo as well as anyone around him. So I suspect that he channeled the tornado to knock the leader away on purpose.
Oh,
Again,
to save
he is
him?
not drawing blood, so he pushed him away so he wouldn't get hit. Which leads us
Oh,
to
Yasuo,
the
I love
payoff
you. That's
itself.
cool.
As Yasuo looks up, he can see
this.
a cloud of arrows, which is something Yasuo has faced many times before. In fact, if you go back to the Climb cinematic from 5 years ago,
What's it
you'll
called?
see that in Ionia,
Climb?
he was once again faced with the exact same scenario.
We are
And what
watching
did
this,
he
guys.
do? Of course, he summoned the Wind Wall
Yeah.
to protect himself.
Okay.
Yes, I do believe this is what the Still Here cinematic is referencing. It is supposed to show us that
Climb.
Yasuo has a way out of this scenario.
Mm.
All he needs to do is to make a wind wall. So, does he do it? No. We know that he can do it because the cinematic purposefully showed it to us earlier on. But he still doesn't do it, and instead he willingly embraces his own end, which is indicated by the eyes of the wolf, which you can see
I did not
in the
notice this
distance,
at
as
all,
well
guys.
as the arrow of death coming from Lamb herself. So yes, Yasuo dies.
Lamb
in
is
the
her
sea,
character.
and
Okay,
it is
Kindred is
perhaps
both
the
of them,
most badass death he could have asked for. Now, here we need to point out an interesting thing.
Him saving the
After
villain
this
was
cinematic
awesome.
came out, there was an article by .esports where they got to interview the creative directors of this cinematic.
Ooh,
and
yes,
here
please.
it was confirmed that this was a vision given to Yasuo by Kindred themselves. Also, if you go into the description of this cinematic, you'll see that this is a possible future. Which
Yeah.
made many people think that this is a what-if scenario.
That's what I
It is
assumed.
not Yasuo's real death, and it is just what could happen if Yasuo goes down a certain path. Well, I propose this is real. And Riot just chickened out. And they wanted to have the doors open just in case they want to do something else in the future.
Yeah, why not? That's
No,
fine.
I think this is how Yasuo dies. In fact, he must die like this. See, based on a bunch of different
It's a cool
stories,
death, I guess.
we know that
No, it
while
is. It
League
was-
of Legends
it's
only
sad,
has
though.
one true timeline, there are ways for people to look across time into a bunch of different what-if scenarios. For example, Zillion's story is all about looking into a bunch of different potential outcomes of their universe.
Zillion's
So that
awesome.
doesn't mean that the other universes are real. They are just windows into possibilities. But that's what those are. They are hypothetical windows. They are not
Zillion's
real.
amazing.
In the real timeline, a
guessing that's
future
it.
foreseen cannot be changed. This was always heavily implied with Olaf. That's right, Olaf is a
Olaf of the
Freljordian
Call.
warrior who got a prophecy from a shaman. A prophecy that one day he's gonna die of old age in his bed. Of course, Olaf refused to believe in that.
Oh,
he
he's
was
a Klingon,
certain
is he?
he would die a glorious death in battle. And
That's
so,
Klingon
ever
things,
since
right?
that day, Olaf traveled around the world, and he looked for the most powerful enemies to fight. From giant kraken worms,
Right.
which consumed entire ships, to undead kings with their undead armies. Olaf
Wow.
fought all of it, and most of them alone. And he always survived. Because
Wow.
every time he got close to death,
Those legs.
a mysterious frenzy took over his body and he came out victorious. All because of his foreseen prophecy that said that he's gonna die old. and he can't change that. Which means that as long as he's fighting, he's immortal. Now, of course, Riot could always go back and retcon parts of Olaf's story. At least that would be for the sake of Yasuo getting a better story later on. But honestly, I kinda hope they don't. Because Yasuo's death is badass, and I hope they commit to it one day.
And also,
now,
it doesn't actually show him die,
here,
kind of.
Some people theorized about the background here. You can see that all of this is happening beside some snowy mountains. Now, Ionia does have some snowy mountains in the north, but pine trees are not exactly typical for it. This is why some people believe that this entire scene is not happening in Ionia, but rather this is in the Freljord, which would indicate that during the second invasion of Ionia, which was an event teased to happen many times in the past, Noxus might either take over Ionia or entirely annihilate it, forcing Ionians to travel out into other regions. So who knows? Maybe this cinematic is also teasing a very dark future for Ionians. But finally, this takes us into the final part of this cinematic. Tryndamere's battle with death. It immediately starts with a cool detail. Just like the first scene started with a view looking down on Tryndamere, indicating him descending down towards death. The second part starts with a view up, indicating that he's rising up again. Now first things first, why is Tryndamere alive here? The reason is Aatrox again. Yes, later in his story, roughly about 1,000 years after his part with Kayle and Morgana, Aatrox invades Tryndamere's tribe, and he stabs Tryndamere with the blade, infusing him with blood magic in the process.
Guys, if you told me this, I'm so sorry.
It is possible that Aatrox did this to turn Tryndamere into a worthy host later on.
Wow!
The thing is, you know how Aatrox is immortal and always bound to his weapon? Yeah, by infusing Tryndamere with blood magic, he also cursed him with the Undying Rage, turning Tryndamere.
You guys did tell me about this, yeah.
Too. We still don't know the limits of Tryndamere's immortality, but we know that death is not gonna have a great time with him. So, this scene does not happen too long after the first one. You'll see there is some evidence that shows us that this is only a few minutes or seconds after the first scene. It all starts with a snowflake that falls down onto his blade and immediately gets absorbed into it. This is because Tryndamere is an Iceborn, and his blade is infused with true ice, which is a Freljordian magical kind of ice that originates from the Yeti magic. And then, after Tryndamere stands up, he gets ready to face death. And based on the fact that he is not surprised at all, this is not the first time he's doing this.
No, you
now,
guys mentioned
the
it.
lamb is often not alone, and so Tryndamere also gets an epic fight with the wolf. The fight itself is absolutely gorgeous.
Kindred.
And sometimes you get amazing shots such as this one. With CGI on such a stunning level, Tryndamere just looks like a real human being here. But yes, he deflects arrows from the lamb and fights off the wolf. Because today is not his day.
That's the best shot of the trailer, guys. I love that with like the lamb walking in the background.
Which he normally doesn't. That's a cool detail. And yes, eventually, Tryndamere's Undying Rage kicks in, which is when you can start noticing some more details. First of all, when Tryndamere charges the lamb, it is awesome to see the wolf dash in to protect her. But then, Tryndamere actually gets to shatter her bow, which immediately reforms back in her hand, because you can't stop death. In this scene, you can also see the lamb slightly tilt her head in curiosity. It is obvious the lamb and the wolf came here to claim Tryndamere's life.
They're not used to getting
now they realize this might not be possible, which is where the confusion comes from. Immediately after that, the wolf bites into Tryndamere's shoulder. And you'll see that from that point on, the shoulder pad actually stays damaged.
Oh, I thought that was damaged from the start.
Attention to it. And you really just say screw you when the lamb tries to snipe Tryndamere in the back. He just casually parries the arrow with his hand as the Undying Rage goes on. The fight then continues for a little bit longer, before the lamb finally decides that today is not Tryndamere's day. After which we get two arrows from Ashe flying by her, which is a slight reference to Ashe's volley ability. and the arrows stick into two Winter's Claw warriors behind Tryndamere, which is capped off with the image of the lamb dissolving into Ashe, Tryndamere's oath-sworn wife who came in to rescue him. That's
so the damage is still there.
Married,
it is.
although at first they just got married for political reasons. The love came later. Now this dissolving image is actually hinting at what is really happening here. Especially when you combine it with the fact that in the next scene, Tryndamere's shoulder pad is still damaged.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to ask.
Caused by the wolf, which supposedly happened in the Death Realm. Well, in theory, this would show you that all of this was only happening in Tryndamere's head. While in his mind he was fighting death itself.
Love that shot so much.
In reality, in the outside world, Tryndamere was fighting the other warriors of the Winter's Claw. This would be why the damage on his shoulder pad stayed physical. It was actually caused by his real enemies. He just imagined them to look like the wolf. And on top of that, I do believe that's why the image of the lamb dissolved into Ashe. It was all to show
he
us
thought
that
it was
Tryndamere
Kindred at
only
the start.
imagined his enemies to look like the lamb and the wolf.
Yeah.
And when Ashe arrived, she broke the illusion. To really confirm that this is what happened, you can go back to the very beginning of this cinematic for another detail.
Yes,
when Tryndamere was laying there at the brink of death, when he looked into the distance, despite many people believing that this was the lamb, now we know this was more likely just Ashe.
True.
And she was only seconds away from him. The thing is, in that scene, Tryndamere was surrounded by 6 other warriors. But when Ashe arrived, she only killed 2 of them, despite the field already being clean. The cinematic specifically zooms out to show us that everyone's dead. Which means that Tryndamere did kill the rest of the warriors while in his undying rage. Which finally brings us to the final scene, where Ashe shoots her Hawkeye into the sky to signal the Avarosans to come in and pick them up. You can see that this is in fact her Hawkeye because the arrow actually turns into a hawk. It also gets the sound effect, and it reveals that there are more warriors coming for them.
Yes, we could see that.
And so, this is the Still Here cinematic explained.
Fantastic.
I absolutely love this one, because every time you watch it, you notice something new. We spent 3 hours going through this on stream to make sure that we really pick up most of the details.
That's cool, I might need to go watch that stream.
Massive shout out to Riot for actually giving us a fully canonical cinematic, which did wonders to the community. Though, I have to point out, there were some issues with this cinematic.
Yeah, Aatrox.
But mysteriously, in the next scene, it disappears, and Ashe kills 2 people with her arrows, but later on, you can only see 1. 0 out of 10. This cinematic is ruined.
Yeah. And some people, I know that some people were, well, I'll talk about it in a moment. Oh, no, I will talk about it now. Okay, first of all, Necrit, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for that. That is such a digestible... That was brilliant. Like with his World War Runeterra video. It's so digestible to someone who is new to this app. Now, granted, the World War Runeterra stuff went into detail, so it was great to have a select few characters for him to really pick into. Fantastic. Great to hear about Olaf here. Obviously, we saw him in the Call trailer. I said about Klingons. They have a thing about, like, not wanting... I remember I saw one episode of Star Trek Next Generation. I haven't seen that much, guys. Where like, Worf, like, finds out that someone died peacefully in his sleep, and he says, oh, how disgraceful, how dishonourable, or something like that. So that immediately made me think of Olaf. So, first of all, guys, I need to apologise, because the whole Aatrox and Tryndamere connection, I'm guessing that some of you may have mentioned in the comments. If you did, guys, I probably did read it, but I just... my dyslexia and everything, it just went over my head. I didn't realise that there was a connection between them at all. That's fascinating. Now, I did get, I think, a couple of comments saying that Aatrox was kind of done dirty in the Still Here trailer. Wow. So it looks like Kayle has a lot of different looks. I gotta say, I'm more a Morgana guy, but Kayle does look awesome as well. Now, at one point, guys, I don't like to pause during these reactions, guys, because it just ruins the flow of the video. Necrit made this video to flow in a certain way. You don't need me pausing every few seconds says, does that mean? And then have the question answered immediately after, you know? So that's why I just let the whole thing play through. I didn't know that there was a time in Demacia before it was prejudice against mages. I think Demacia is awesome, guys, and I feel like that would be my town of choice if it wasn't for the discrimination. You know, and obviously, you know, in some cases, that discrimination with Silas, is it? And everything like that, which I think that this shot, and as well as a few other shots, are from not a cinematic, but a sort of like a lore video about Demacia, which I haven't seen, and quite frankly, I need to watch it. Yeah, I did get a comment pointing out this look, and I got to admit, guys, when I was editing the video together, I did notice this look. I was thinking, oh, there's history here, isn't there? That look, guys. The sort of look I get from people when they watch my videos. That's a joke. But yeah, the Demacia video I need to watch, clearly, because I find their history fascinating. I've said before that out of everywhere in Runeterra, the only place I think I could survive is Piltover, and I mean Piltover, not Zon. Because, you know, they need to have, like, you know, people working in coffee shops and everything like that. I'll live there, quietly. No, because then Jinx is going to blow me up. I don't know. Jinx is my favourite character from Arcane, guys. Sorry, I'm waffling. So there being a connection between Aatrox and Tryndamere is fascinating. Zilean looked amazing. If that was that character, the guy with the beard and the craziness that was going on behind him. And we saw a lot of characters which I've never heard of before. And Yasuo's death, like I say, guys, when I was watching the trailer, that whole thing about him dying, the wolf being there, I'll admit, even the arrows being in the air, I didn't notice when I was first watching it, so I apologise about that. That's tragic if Ionia is being completely overrun. I guess you could argue, although I've been told, you know, there is an argument for Noxians being... I don't think anyone's saying that Noxians are nice people, but they're you could definitely see their side of... They're trying to unite, in a way, the world, aren't they? I remember somebody referring to them as being like the British Empire, in fact. And we saw the Tales of Runeterra, where you had this crazy king, like saying, "No, I'm gonna let Noxus kill us all," and the people like saying, "What are you talking about?" And in the end, I think the servant girl kills the king. I no. I can't remember. It was awesome though, either way. So it really shows, like, you know, the philosophy of Noxus. Again, I feel like Piltover is the only place I'm going to be able to survive, guys, quite frankly. But this is absolutely fascinating. And it was awesome hearing about the moves that are in game as well. I did presume that what Morgana and... yeah, this pose I was told about, I couldn't see it until now, guys. It's great to actually have the image next to it of the lamb, because I need to refer to that character as the lamb, don't I? Whereas Kindred is both of them together. I worry that I'm getting this stuff wrong, guys, because I don't want you to have to be repeating yourselves in the comments, because I know that a lot of you filled me in with Kindred, because it is Kindred's trailer. I got loads of comments saying this is absolutely the story of Kindred, who has to be the most powerful character that I've met so far, right? I'd say that I'm not even a third into the characters, guys, because there's over 150, aren't there? Oh yes, the Climb is the name of this one, right? I feel like I need to check this out. I don't know if it's a Yasuo specific trailer, but anything with Yasuo I'm up for, guys. I think I mean, that is a lot of arrows, Yasuo. Jeez. We don't actually see him die. It's possible that he jumped out of the way of the arrow, right? Of Kindred's arrow. Or the lamb's arrow. Fascinating. I mean, this is great, guys. Maybe I should. I didn't know about this, guys. I'm sure that some of you probably did tell me about Tryndamere having a connection with Aatrox. Aatrox, yes. If you did let me know, guys, I'm sorry, because that went completely over my head. If you did let me know. But this, like, being a situation where it may... I mean, I guess it's possible that it's literally not happening, and it's literally just Tryndamere thinking, oh, balls, I'm going to die. And in the throes of, you know, his last, his last swings that he can do, he's seeing all this. Because I presume that you don't see... Oh, this is an interesting question. So maybe Dying Rage makes it a little bit different. But normally, I presume people don't see the lamb before they die. Gordon Bennett, the thing about Aatrox dropping his sword. I think that was the thing which people were saying about was making him underpowered. The fact that Kayle and Morgana could take out Aatrox is a stretch, I think you guys are saying. But I remember when I watched the Warriors trailer and people were saying that Vi and Caitlyn shouldn't be able to take out that guy. I can't remember his name. What is up with Caitlyn? And I don't have a problem, guys, but Caitlyn seems to be what's the term? Non-fatal? Because obviously she is in Arcane. She always hits, like, with Sabika, hits, like, the metal parts and makes Sabika go bouncing around. But even the guy's about to let the big monster dude out of on the Warriors trailer, she's, like, hitting his thing. So maybe she just doesn't kill. If that's cool, if that's the case, then that's awesome. And maybe it's because of what happened with... I can't say that because of spoilers. I'm guessing you guys have seen Arcane. Okay, if anyone's watching this at this point and you haven't seen Arcane, let me know in the comments. I'll be fascinated to know, but I don't want to spoil anything, just in case. But yeah, it's cool. It's a Batman thing, if that is the deal with Caitlyn. When it comes to trailers and lore and everything like that about characters that are in Arcane, guys, I do want to... I'm very cautious about it because I don't know... the example I always give is if, and I have seen Vi in cinematics now, so this, but this is hypothetical, obviously. If in the game Vi only has one arm, then in Arcane I want to be able to experience that happening in Arcane before I find out that it's going to happen. You know, if that makes any sense. And so I'm very, very wary about watching trailers about Jace, about Vi, about Caitlyn, Jinx. Obviously, I say Jinx. I've watched several Jinx in. Yeah, I'm always very cautious about watching them, but let me know what to watch next, guys. I mean, quite frankly, if you guys are... we need to do the Wild Rift. We need to do the Wild Rift, definitely. But when it comes to Necrit's channel, I presume he has also done similar videos for Warriors, Awaken, The Call, which I actually probably need to watch next, guys, because like I was saying it right at the start, out of all these trailers, The Call felt like the one... There's the fuzzy dude. Felt like the one which was made specifically for fans of the lore, who are already fans of the lore. Now, it was amazing for someone who didn't know any of the characters, i.e. me. But I really got the impression that it was made purely for people who absolutely love the lore, and it was made for them. And so I should probably check out that. I don't know. We will check it out in the future. I mean, he's done a bunch of stuff, guys. In fact, I have watched a couple of his videos outside of reactions as well. Oh yes, the skin drama. Now, was that Morgana in this? There was a character who was getting skins, and is that Morgana? Syndra. So this isn't Morgana, is it? I mean, that looks like Morgana mixed with Kayle, quite frankly. Maybe it is Morgana. But I remember, I remember this popping up in my suggestions because I'd watched the RPG thing. So Scarlet Witch. And I thought, oh, this would be interesting. Yeah, I feel like Morgana may have shown up in this one, because I'm not sure if that is Morgana. I don't know, guys. I honestly can't remember. No, it's not. It's Syndra is this character's name. I mean, she looks amazing as well. And she's clearly more into red than purple. And it's interesting that he said that Morgana's ability isn't evil. It's yeah. Oh, see again. That could be her, with some different color there. But these are skins for Wild Rift, aren't they? Or at least a different game. And Eve, again, guys, I did say about playing League in my reaction to Still Here, and you guys were saying, just play the other games, Veggie. Just play the other games. I don't know. Maybe one day. I just feel, you know what? I am like a very strange person when it comes to. I just feel like I'd be really good at it, but that's not going to be the case. So, I don't know, guys. Oh, these are all looks here, so you see how different these characters, these looks are. My goodness, that's oh, I'm hiding the watch I'm pointing at. Can I show you this? There we go. It's like 40k blooming, what are they called? In Warhammer 40,000, the human army, you know, the Brotherhood of Man. That's not what they're called. It's a band, isn't it? Okay, who cares? Right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry how waffly I am, guys. I get like this when I enjoy something. I get very waffly. I really do, and so that's why some of my videos can be quite long. But this was blooming wonderful. This was, and I feel like I've just learned so much about that trailer. I need to check out more Necrit stuff. His stuff is so digestible. He has a skill at being able to explain this stuff, and so thank you so much, Necrit. LOMMR. I don't know what that means. Either way, guys, let me know what I should check out next. More Necrit stuff, more League of Legends stuff, or whatever else. Please like and subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm VEGGIEKNIGHTS, and I'll see you next time.